The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? What do you do when you're ex-military and need a job? Obviously clean windows on skyscrapers for a company devastating the environment. Duh. Just look out for eco-terrorists. Amber and Scott learned after watching Cleaner. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
Don't you just hate it when you watch a movie and you can't really tell who the good guys and the bad guys are?
I do hate that.
Yeah.
You found that to be the case here?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least part of the way.
Alrighty. Well, this episode we are talking about Cleaner. At a high-profile corporate gala, a heavily armed group of activists take control of 300 hostages. Unbeknownst to them, a lone window cleaner witnesses the crime in progress, and as it turns out, she's a retired soldier skilled in hand-to-hand combat and firearm tactics.
What a day to be late to work.
Yeah, so our main character is Joni. Joanna. They called her Joni. Am I wrong? Okay. Anyway, so our main character is Joanna, and we start the film with seeing her being very agile at being able to kind of scale her kitchen and sit out on a windowsill that actually is the top of a very, very, very high apartment building. And then we quickly move in the film, and she is a window cleaner who has now had to take unexpected custody of her adult autistic brother who has been kicked out of yet another care facility.
Then 9. He's been kicked out of 9. One twice, but it counts, so it's 9.
That's true. So she gets to work, and she hangs out with her pal cleaning windows. And then shortly after that, they have the gala, at which point the entertainment is actually activists in disguise who then take control of the party and basically said, hey, you're an energy company. You're actually doing really bad things. You're dumping oil into the water and dumping wastewater into the ocean, and people need to know what you're doing. And we have an organized environmental group who is in charge of the action. But then we have one person, Noah, who is a little bit more extremist, who is kind of allowed to come to this action, who quickly takes over, kills the head of the more well-known stable environmental group, and takes over with a bloodlust to get confessions from everybody about all the money they've taken and the bribes and all the evil doings and how they've polluted the earth and done unspeakable crimes against the environment, and how the Secretary of Energy has taken all of these bribes to execute the agenda of the company. And our window washer, Joanna, manages to get inside and try to help the cops.
Absolutely none of those confessions would be admissible in court.
Yeah, they would say it was under duress. But you know what?
Yeah,
In today's
just a little bit.
But in today's age, though, it would be easy enough if you had that for then independent journalists and just people with internet access to do some digging and fact-finding and to validate that all of that was actually true.
Yeah.
I mean, because there was no doubt that the people at the energy company were actually bad guys, and they were polluting the oceans, and they were polluting waterways, and they might have labeled themselves as an energy company who cared about sustainability, but they really only cared about their own bank books, and if they destroyed the earth in the process, they really didn't seem to care.
Yeah, let me tell you, as a guy who does occasionally watch some financial stuff, man, those CEOs, they are paid to care about money. That's pretty much what they're paid to care about. They hire other people to care about other things, but making money.
Yeah, and me being me, I know that it takes activism to get the truth out so often than not, because when people conduct unethical behavior in those settings, everyone around them enjoys the party, gets the payouts, gets the bribes, gets the payoffs, gets the perks. And it's very hard to bring light to all of these crimes that happen, especially when it comes to environmental crimes. And although Noah, his belief is that every human should be wiped off of the face of the planet and the planet would be better. I do have to agree with him. I think the planet would be better without us, but I don't think you can do that. I don't think that's a good thing considering how many humans there are at this point. Mass destruction of the human race would not be practical. But
I mean, we could lop off 10% or so.
yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind getting some voting records and kind of, going based on that. But
I mean, it might actually reduce the price of housing here in LA.
But it's a sticky line sometimes because if people don't dig around, the truth doesn't come out. No one's saying, hey, I'm corrupt, look at me. No, they're saying, hey, look at me in my 10th jet, in my 200th car, in my 35th house. And unless you have lawyers and activists out there who are dedicated to actually righting the wrongs when it comes to corporate greed or government corruption, things don't change. So you do need people who stick up for the voiceless and stick up for causes. And I will personally always support activism that protects our planet. That said, strapping bombs across people and that's a little much. And so what would I do?
Have you ever committed a crime in conjunction with your activism?
No.
Are you telling the truth right now?
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, so no.
Don't worry, we'll keep monitoring the situation.
You're funny. Okay, so Noah obviously went to the extreme of gassing all of the guests at the gala and then bringing back the ones that were the true evildoers.
Well, that wasn't even Noah. I mean, that was the that was the original. I mean, that was the original plan.
Yeah, that was the bigger group. But what would you do? I certainly would be on the side of bringing light to the corruption and the fraud of an energy company that was producing all of these slick videos saying, we're stewards of the earth, we believe in sustainability, when they're literally dumping crude oil into the ocean. I'm all for exposing that, and I would happily be a part of anything that exposed that kind of injustice. What would I do when it came to...
what you're saying right now on air is you are a terrorist.
I'm not saying that at all. So what would you do in the fact that they had two camps of the activists? They had the activists that were with the more credible, stable environmental group, and then you had the faction that was anti-human, an anti-human agenda with Noah. And when there was the altercation with Noah and Marcus, Mark being the head of the environmental group that initially had this action, and Noah killed Marcus, then it became a moment of saying, all of you who are here with Marcus, get on the train and get on the Noah train, or it's time to go bye-bye. And a lot of people got shot and went bye-bye.
Yeah, Marcus. If I'm Marcus, I'm probably not telling an armed Noah that, listen to me or I'll take you down. Like, you can tell homie's a little on the unstable side. I don't know that I'm necessarily wanting to rile him up anymore at that point.
Yeah, and I think, when it comes to what would you do, that's a hard one, because if you see that where your leader gets taken out and the slightly unstable person who's in charge now says, hey, fall in line, you're with me or against me. On one hand, I could see my outspoken self saying, I'm here with the original cause and I support the same things Marcus does. But I can also see that if you were with someone unstable, I think you just go along to get yourself out safely and maybe save a couple people along the way.
What's the point of getting yourself killed?
Yeah, I think it's, and that's what our little hacker person, the gal who was in the control room who was helping with videos and communications and what, she she pretty much had that mentality of like, yeah, well, I guess I'm with you, but everybody
up
else
until
got shot.
Well, yeah, up until the point that
She realized no one would
she
get out
realized
alive.
no one was like, I'm dying no matter what. And she's
Yeah.
like, F this.
Yeah. But I think in those circumstances, you say what you have to say to get yourself out safely.
Yeah, 100%.
So what would you do if you, well, and this is, I kind of already know your answer because I know you personally where you stand on some of these things. But if you learned of a terrible injustice of some corporation that was just destroying the earth, and then it was one thing to be destroying the earth, but another thing to saying, we love the earth. We take care of the earth. We believe in sustainability and cradling Mother Nature in our arms. And meanwhile, they're just raping and pillaging every square inch of planet Earth.
As long as they're giving a 4% dividend.
Yeah, see, that's where yeah. You're not exactly the philanthropic activist type. So, yeah, no, I'm not surprised there.
So, yeah, see, my job in this relationship is to be the tyrannical maniac who will stop at nothing to say screw it to everyone. And your job is to love other people and to love the planet and to keep my ass in balance. Or something like that.
I have a very big job ahead of me then.
It's true.
So is there anything else from a what would you do standpoint that stuck out to you in this film? What about the brother? So she brings her autistic brother to work with her because she got into work late, and the whole him being kicked out of the care facility came unexpected. So it was just kind of like, come along with me to work, and then we'll deal with this after work. And so he was trapped in the building during this episode. And even though he was very high functioning, absolutely, he still definitely had some autistic quirks about him that made it more of a challenge because our main character, Joanna, got the security guard to watch him, and then he wandered off, and then he was in the building when everything went haywire.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when you're dealing with autistic people, despite my knowing a lot about mental health and stuff like that, I don't know too many truly autistic people. Like, I think he was slightly less than high functioning. Like, he definitely had some issues in there. I mean, he wasn't low functioning or anything like that. Like, he
hacked a system.
Yeah. I mean, well, trust me, some of those autistic people, they can
Extremely
be
knowledgeable.
very savant, like in certain areas,
Right.
whether they're high functioning or not.
But he would get scared. He did need a hug. Like there was
Squeeze.
a squeeze. Yes, there were things when being thrust in that environment of him saying, I'm not comfortable here. I don't want to be here.
Yeah,
so
none of us want to be here.
Yeah, and I know that you're more knowledgeable than me on this topic. So if you had a sibling who was caught in that situation, what would you do?
I mean, it kind of seemed like she was the only person that he could count on at that point. And I mean, she knows she can't just leave him alone. Now, I have to admit, about the time that I'm dangling out of a window and like I'm literally dangling in midair, I'm probably more concerned with getting myself to safety before I am concerned about getting my autistic brother to safety.
Well, and that's when Joanna was outside on the window cleaning apparatus. I don't know exactly the lift or whatnot, but he was safely inside. So I mean, there was no urgent matter there.
I mean, but she was literally hanging off of it when she first mentioned her brother to them. Like, get my brother out safe. I'm like, fuck, get me out safe.
Well, yeah, but I mean, she knows that if something happened to her, it's very likely he would be put into some sort of system. So that makes sense to me. That doesn't make sense to you?
Well, I mean, yes, it makes sense to me.
But you're more about save me.
But well, yeah, I mean, save me so I can properly save him. Yeah.
Well, the one person I didn't want to save, I can tell you, is we had the two brothers who were in charge of the energy company. We had Jeffrey and Jared Milton. And 5 minutes into the movie, I wanted Gerald Milton to die. So when the building got taken over with the activists, I was really hoping they would take out Gerald. I think the world would be a better place without him.
You know who I was happy to see die?
This is the turn we took here. Yahoo.
The guy who was in charge of the window washers, the guy who was being a dick
Yeah.
to her.
Yeah.
And I like how his death had like no fanfare whatsoever. Like they just came in and shot him.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here, you piece of shit.
They did.
I
It's kind of interesting. Within the first couple of minutes of the movie, we had people we immediately wanted taken out or took satisfaction in their execution.
yeah, like I said at the beginning, don't you hate it when you don't know who the good guys are and the bad guys are? And like, at least when who's Marcus, whenever Marcus was still running the thing, it was kind of like you're kind of like, okay, I can get behind this cause.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this.
Well, and that's the unfortunate part, and that's actually something I've seen firsthand is you do have a worthy cause. You have information that needs to get out to the public. You have a lot of passionate people who are there for all the right reasons. And I have been in those environments. I've seen those environments, and I've also seen them affected by one or two people who are out of sync and unfortunately chip away at the credibility of the main cause. And that's unfortunately what Noah did with his extremist, like no humans on the planet approach. Is it was too much, and it took what was a very noble cause to get all of the information out and have these people admit to their crimes and have, all the dumping stopped and to let people know what was happening in this energy company. And it took a turn where then they were perceived as terrorists. And I've seen that happen a lot with activism, where you have legitimate good activism, and then it only takes one person or a handful of people to skew that, and then it starts lacking credibility, which is really unfortunate because the cause is still the same. The entity or the people or the animals that needed help still need help. But then when one person starts controlling things, then people are very quick to scream terrorist.
Yeah, it's a very fine line. I mean,
well, it's a fine line, but it's also a manipulative line. Like, there had been states in the past where if you supported any form of animal rights and just peacefully picketed somewhere, they called you a terrorist. So, I mean, it's a political motive as well to shut people up or to discredit the things that activists say. And there was a period of time where a lot was happening in our government to discredit activists, and not because they were wrong, but because they were right. And when you can take away any credibility when it comes to public perception, then the good guys still win and silence rules.
Well, I'll tell you this. When you start railing against corporate profits and stuff like that, which don't get me wrong, as somebody who would be more classified as a little guy than a fat cat, I'm okay with the idea. But as soon as you start talking about stuff like that, you're going to get some very wealthy enemies. And yeah, they'll figure out a way of getting you shut down. So you've got to be... You just got to be a little bit careful on this. And if you're going to be an activist, be very targeted, like for what you're...
Well, I think it was a good plan out of the gate. I mean, it was a lot. But you know what? These people aren't just going to come clean on their own.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good plan, except for the fact, I mean, it was obviously, there was definitely some law breaking and... Lots of stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what.
I mean, honestly, any activism that moves the needle has some law breaking.
Yeah, I don't think this was some law breaking. I mean, they were binding people and holding them against their will.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of stuff happening.
And the original plan was a little on the extreme side. Don't get me wrong.
I agree.
I think that they were like, okay, I'm willing to go to jail for a little bit here if we can get this company basically shut down.
Right. And the original group didn't hurt anybody. It was only Noah and Noah's people who started hurting people. And that's unfortunately when it turns from activism to terrorism.
Yeah. So, final thoughts?
Terrorism? Don't be a terrorist, but always do what's right and be an activist.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.